friends and colleagues from all over the world. I'm very honored to announce that the South-South Forum main forum starts today with 12 sessions of dialogues, and we also have 4 workshops and 18 lectures, with the first 3 lectures delivered in the last 3 days by Gustavo, ESTEVA, and Lee Kikok. May I first introduce the co-moderators for today's session. My name is Lau Kin Chi. I have taught in Lingnan University half my life, first in translation and then in cultural studies. I am currently coordinator of the program on Cultures of Sustainability, Center for Cultural Research and Development, Lingnan University. I am also director of the executive team of the Global University for Sustainability. I have been involved in the rural reconstruction movement in China for over 2 decades, and I'm also board member of PeaceWomen across the globe. Professor Tsui, Margaret Jade, is Associate Professor at the Institute of Rural Reconstruction of China, Southwest University, China. She is board member of Asian Regional Exchange for New Alternatives and one of the founding members of Global University for Sustainability. She has been actively involved in the rural reconstruction movement in China since the year 2000. Dr. Xiaohui is researcher with the Program on Cultures of Sustainability, Center for Cultural Research and Development of Lingnan University. He is also Executive Director of Green Ground Eco-Tech Center in Beijing and Director of the Green Ground Alliance of Social Enterprises in China. So the 3 of us will co-moderate today's session. The forum will continue until July the 19th. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank the 11 co-organizers for their intellectual and organizational inputs, and many of them have been co-organizing the South-South Forum since the first one in 2011, which is 10 years ago. Before I invite our guests of honor to give their speech, we would like to first present you with a video titled Figures of Hope. The photos were taken by Mr. Patrick CHOW. He is a world-renowned photographer, having won many global awards. He is Vice President of Shan Yan Chen Photo Art Alumni Association and the Art of Photography Association. He is an associate of the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain and top 10 in Photographic Society of America's International Who's Who in Photography in the years 2014, 2015, and 2016, including first place in monochrome in 2015. Mr. Chow's photographic interest covers a wide range of subjects, including nature scenes, living things large and small, and portraits of human lives. It is his wish that in capturing and sharing the moments of beauty and love in the world, he can help bring a sense of serenity and hope to people. You may have come across him with his professional cameras, but at the Lingnan campus, you may also have seen him as a volunteer helping with tilling the soil and harvesting the bananas. The music coming with the video was performed by Professor Xiaohui. He is the chief editor of the Hong Kong volumes of Chinese Opera Annals and Anthology of Chinese Opera Music, and adjunct professor of cultural studies at Lingnan University and of the music department at Chinese University of Hong Kong. Professor Yu's research interests include organology, instrumental music, Chinese music history, Chinese music theater, music of the Manchus and Mongols in the Qing court, popular music, movie music, and cultural politics in the music of Hong Kong. He has also received training in Nanyin, a form of Cantonese narrative singing. So now, please enjoy the video, Figures of Hope.
I am very honored to be invited to share some of my photos at this 8th South-South Forum on Sustainability with the theme of hope. These photos are moments of beauty and love that I have perceived with my heart and captured with my camera. I believe where there is beauty and love, there is hope.
So thank you again, Mr. Patrick Chow and Professor Xiaohui, for initiating the main forum with your beautiful photos and music. We now will be hearing from representatives of the organizers and co-organizers. May I invite Professor Joshua Mok-Gaho to give his speech. Professor Mok is the Vice President and concurrently Lam Men San Chair Professor of Comparative Policy of Lingnan University. Before joining Lingnan, he was the Vice President and Chair Professor of Comparative Policy of the Hong Kong Institute of Education and the Associate Dean and Professor of Social Policy, Faculty of Social Sciences of the University of Hong Kong. Prior to this, Professor Mok was appointed as the founding chair professor in East Asian Studies and established the Centre for East Asian Studies at the University of Bristol in the UK. So, Professor Mok, please.
Honorable guests, colleagues, friends around different parts of the world, it is truly the honor of Lingnan University to co-host the 8th South Forum on Sustainability. And I'm so sorry that, this is the second year that we are unable to see each other and greet each other face to face because of the global health crisis that you and I are now currently confronting. But I would like to take this opportunity for wishing every one of the participants very good health. And I think the video and the slide demonstrate about the importance about hope. And this is really timely for the world now is suffering from this particular pandemic. I congratulate the organizing committee, not only organizing this very meaningful event annually, but particularly for this year, I like the theme very much. I think the politics of hope, people's resilience and resistance in the catastrophic times is truly a well-chosen theme for the event. So I would like to thank all the speakers, participants, and also friends joining this particular event. I learned from Kinchi there will be a total over 90 speakers from over 30 countries or regions. So in order to enable every one of you from around the world to meet, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I don't know which time zone you are from, but the message is Hong Kong welcome you. We hope that when the crisis is over, we can see you on the campus at Lingnan University, leading liberal arts university in Asia, of Asia, and for Asia. And we have only one session each day, and I think simultaneous interpreting into English, Spanish, and other language will be provided for all sections. And I know a lot of very distinguished speakers. I won't go into all detail by introducing them or naming them individually, but I would like to thank all of you by taking out your very precious time through all night to talk to each other, to engage and continues to engage in conversation. I think this forum is indeed a feast of ideas with prominent speakers talking to each other. And in the Chinese context, we once again recognize the importance of traditional Chinese medicine and community mobilization when we encounter the COVID-19 pandemic. In order to regenerate our ancient wisdoms, we have leading Chinese scholars joining us to celebrate the Chinese ecological thought and practices. Actually, last year, the university has also decided to set up our on-campus Chinese medicine clinic. It's not only offering medical services. Most important of all, our colleagues working for the clinic, serving not only the medical practitioners, but most important of all, they engage our students, our friends, and also faculty members, sharing about the values behind Chinese medicine, the culture, and philosophy. So I've heard from colleagues joining the Chinese medicine clinic is not only getting the service, they enjoy friendship, and also we evangelize about the importance wisdom from Chinese medicine, a very ancient, philosophy. So I would like to thank colleagues helping us to reflect upon the ecological thoughts and practices and the philosophy of Chinese medicine during this few days event. We also have scholars from other parts of Asia to discuss herbal medicines and local knowledge in different settings. I truly believe local knowledge has a lot of wisdom to offer, especially when we are facing not only Western medicine could help heal about the current global crisis in terms of COVID-19 pandemic. I think this particular crisis should have humbled everyone, including myself. We all appreciate about how vulnerable humankind can be, but we share the common fate. So let's work together, sharing about our local wisdom and cross over in terms of collaboration to creating a better world. So among the many distinguished speakers, I would like to give our thanks to the long-term friends of Lingnan University, from Tsinghua University, Peking University, Southwest University, and other universities all around the world in supporting us for this meaningful event. I would like to take this opportunity in thanking not only the co-organizer outside the university. I would like to thank, in particular, Tsui and her team, their dedication and continues to promote sustainability at Lingnan University. I would like to congratulate the Department of Cultural Studies and the Center for Cultural Research and Development with its team of dedicated staff and volunteers for making the South Forum on Sustainability an annual event. I would hope to have more this form of event, not only our annual forum or other seminars or practices happening on Lingnan's campus, because sustainability is so important. The university here is also a strong believer in supporting UN SDG. So I thank also the Global University for Sustainability for organizing this event with Lingnan University all this year. And we thank the PeaceWomen across the globe, the ALBA movement, the Federal University of Espírito, Santo, Brazil, and Peking University, Tsinghua University, Southwest University, Fujian Agriculture and Forestry University, as well as other organizations. Please bear with me that I may forget to name some of the important people and organizations. But coming from my heart, I would like to thank all of you. Once again, I wish you enjoy your forum, not only the conversation, but in what way we can turn our conversation into concrete practices in supporting sustainability and promoting sustainable development goals in Hong Kong and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Professor Mok's speech. And now we would like to invite overseas speakers to deliver their welcome speech. The first one is Gustavo ESTEVA. He is an activist and public intellectual, the author of numerous books and articles, a columnist for La Agenda in Mexico, and occasionally The Guardian. He has been actively engaged in the fight for reclaiming the commons, together with indigenous people, peasant, and urban marginalized. He collaborates with the University of the Earth in Oaxaca, in Mexico, which he helped to found in 2001. And now he will deliver his speech, and then, but we did a pre-recording of his speech. So now let's see his pre-recording speech. Thank you very much.
This is a time of barbarism. It's not a few days in a few places or a few monsters. Not all of them are the same, but the barbarians are everywhere. It is our time. It is our epoch. We can be legitimately horrified for what is happening in Colombia or Palestine. We can be moved and desperate for what is happening in India. But everywhere we can find immense suffering. There is a lot of despair and fear. With the pandemic, we were exposed to a systematic campaign that produced personal and collective fear everywhere. We have been then moving between fear and horror in what begins to look as the worst of times. Many people feel that we are at the dead end, that we are suffering a real threat of extinction of the human species, that we will not be able to overcome the current challenges. At the same time, however, we are beginning to hear many amazing stories. We are hearing how millions of people in thousands of communities not only successfully resisted the pandemic, but were able to generate deep transformations that are creating new opportunities for a better life. We are discovering an ocean of compassion and solidarity among many people. What is this? What is happening? Should we use the very famous quote of Charles Dickens in The Tale of Two Cities? You know the quote, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We need to seriously acknowledge the challenges that we have, the challenges of the current time. We need to be aware of the barbarians. For many people, it is next to impossible to assume that we can no longer trust the state, the government, that those in charge of protecting us can be the problem instead of the solution. Perhaps we need to stop seeing to the top and try to see around us at the grand roots. Perhaps we can find there the source of inspiration that we badly need for these confusing times. La montaña, the mountain, crossed the Atlantic during the last month. It left the shores of Mexico, of Isla Mujeres, on May 3rd, and 7 Zapatistas crossed the ocean going to Europe, to visit Europe. We need to ask ourselves why these 7 Zapatistas on board generated such a wave of hope in the old continent, in the old Europe. How many people are moved now and mobilized, are organized to host them in 30 countries? Why the Zapatistas are bringing such amount of hope to the people in Europe, to the people all around the world? Perhaps they illustrate better than any other group what can be described, and it is really a fantastic source of hope today, what can be described as a non-localist localism. The Zapatistas are very well rooted in a place, in their place, in Chiapas, and they have been creating there an impressive new way of life, an autonomous way of life, radically breaking with all the horrors of the dominant regime, in spite of being continually exposed to all kinds of pressures and attacks. They have planted the seeds for new kind of social relations, for a new dialogue with Mother Earth, for the autonomous creation of a radically democratic system of government in which the government, the people themselves, command by obeying. They are not a promise, they are a reality, a new social and political reality. Well rooted in their place, they are not closet in it, in themselves, isolated. They are open to others like them, also challenging the dominant regime and creating everywhere. And this is our main source of hope, that everywhere are groups of people challenging the dominant regime and creating new opportunities to live in freedom and to care for life. The Zapatistas are not going to Europe um, to preach, to tell them, to create gigantic organizations with all these people trying to create. They are going to visit some people like them, to listen to them, to learn with them, and to weave with them in a new kind of embrace that is transforming despair into hope. This is also the time of hope. That is why the focus of our forum changed this year. We have consistently discussed the challenges of community self-organizations and the defense of the commons. This year, we changed our emphasis. We want to explore the politics of hope. We need to know, to be fully aware that hope is the very essence of popular movements. It does not depend on a new ideological construction of possible future. It is not equivalent to expectation as the conviction that something will happen will turn out well. It expresses the conviction that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. Hope is that rejection of conformity and defeat. People mobilize because they have the hope that their actions may generate the actions, the changes they need. We cannot live without hope. Hope can also be called dignity. That nation without nationality, that rainbow that is also a bridge, that murmur of the heart, no matter what blood sleep is, that reverence that mocks borders, customs, and words. That is the focus of our forum this year. For Universidad de la Tierra, the University of the Earth in Oaxaca, Mexico, it is a great joy and an honor to join in the organization of this forum.
Thank you very much, Gustavo ESTEVA. And now we would like to invite Professor Lucia Garcia. She is a professor and coordinator of the graduate program in social policy at the Federal University of Espírito Santo, Brazil. She has experience in the field of social work with an emphasis on social policy and health policy. She also was coordinator of social work area of the Scientific Technical Council at the Coordination for the Improvement of Higher Education panel, CAPES, and under the Ministry of Education, Brazil, from 2014 to 2018. Professor Maria Garcia, please.
Good morning to all present here in the South-South Forum on Sustainability from Brazil. It was a pleasure to represent Social Policy Graduate Program at Federal University of Espírito Santo. Espírito Santo State is located in the southeast of Brazil. And it's an honor for us as a co-organizer of this important forum. In the past year, our program was represented by Professor Paulo Nakatani. The possibility to work with colleagues from China is important, and for colleagues around the world is important for us. We wish to continue our partnership with all of you. Thank you for the organizer to invite our program to stay here, especially Professor Lau Qin-ji and Tsui. In this forum, we were invited to discuss about the politics of hope, people's resilience and reasons in catastrophic time. Living at the catastrophic time, Brazil were close to 500,000 deaths by COVID-19. These numbers are unacceptable. It must be denounced in all parts of the world. The catastrophic Brazilian response to COVID-19 may amount to a crime against humanity. We know that the current health crisis in Brazil, result from COVID-19 pandemic, has itself been inserted into a broader and more complex context of aggravate for economic crisis. In other words, the socio-economic crisis that coronavirus has intensified cannot be dissociated from the cumulative effects of the application of the new liberalism policies, along with the impact of 2007-2008 financial crisis, which have yet to be overcome. It is thus part of a structural capitalist crisis. The combined effects of the crisis and multiple concrete manifestations include the current health crisis, have aggravated the precarious living conditions of Brazilian workers, particularly those most impoverished, underemployed or unemployed. And we have some research showing us the impact, especially for poor, Black, and women. The Brazilian pandemic response illustrates a necropolitics implemented by Bolsonaro government. Through its adoption of negationism, the government has been denounced for neglected in the World Health Organization and United Nations by Brazilian organization. But despite all this, Brazil fights and resists all the aggression suffered from Bolsonaro government. And we take to the streets tomorrow to say in English, get out Bolsonaro, in Portuguese, fora Bolsonaro, and in Spanish, fuera Bolsonaro. I would like to conclude my speech by encouraging all of us to participate in all the activities and discussion for the next days. I wish everyone a successful, safe, and fruitful forum. To finish, I'd like to say a short Brazilian poem from Braulio Bessa. This is a popular poet from the northwest of Brazil. He said that the fear of falling don't stop us to fly, that the fear of injuries don't stop us for healing, and that fear of touch don't stop us for hugging. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria Gracia. And now we would like to invite our representative from Europe, Ruth-Gaby Vermont MANGOLD. She is an ethnologist and sociologist, spending many years in Africa as a researcher and expert on development cooperation. And she headed the Global Education Agency in Switzerland, where she organized advanced training course on development issue and peace policy for teachers. From 1995 to 2007, she was a member of the Swiss Parliament National Council, a member of the Council of Europe, reporting on the problems of refugees and displaced people in the South Caucasus. Ruth-Gaby Vermont MANGOLD is the founder of PeaceWomen across the globe and has been co-president since 2003. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Dear participants, I greet you all warmly. It is good to be in touch with so many people, knowing that we share the same concerns about this broken and hurting world. Yes, you heard it. I'm the founder and the co-president of PeaceWomen across the globe, based in Switzerland. The idea to found a women's organization arose when I saw again and again in many war and crisis zones as a parliamentarian how mainly women refugees were marginalized, discriminated, and their dignity disregarded in the camps. I saw many women who, with a lot of imagination, strength, and ideas, took care of the sick, comforted the children, enabled them to go to school. They planted gardens to alleviate the precarious food situation, and they asked the authorities to grant more help. It was mostly the women who acted unflinchingly and fearlessly, who spoke out, who ordered changements. These women who had lost everything in the wars and yet stood up so strongly impressed me very much. Together with a team from all over the world, Kinchi was with us. Thank you so much, Kinchi. With a team from all over the world, we nominated 1,000 women for the big Nobel Peace Prize 2005. Of course, the 1,000 women did not receive this prize. However, a large, impressive, and lively network of courageous women emerged. Wars and crises are becoming more and more frequent these last years. The world's nations, North and South, waste nearly $2 trillion for their armaments last year. And globally, 3.6% more was spent on the military in 2019 than in the previous year. America, Russia, and China are the biggest weapon dealers. Putin and Biden met yesterday in Geneva, here in Switzerland. One serious newspaper headlined, "These two men could reduce the whole world to rubble. War is mostly the world of men." How inhuman is that? We need immediate and strict demilitarization. And furthermore, all our countries invest massively in the security against terrorism or other fictional enemies in the countries. It is again an armed security, and it is a false security. It is not weapons that makes us safe, not bombs, war strategies and high-tech machines. We are all safe when we have food to eat, when we have work and income, and a place to live. We are safe when we have state well-equipped education and health systems, infrastructures that do not hinder us, but make our daily lives easier. And of course, non-corrupt governance. We need this immediately. We urgently need also securities that protect us and our planet instead of poisoning it with weapons, dirt, and waste. In our organization, in PeaceWomen across the globe, we are convinced that this wounded world can only be healed if we all succeed stopping wars and the armament madness and in accelerating peace processes. In our network, we conduct webinars with committed women on disarmament, demilitarization, and genuine security. Together with our partner women's organizations in Nepal, for example, Colombia, and the Philippines, we combine peace processes and work on transitional justice projects. In other countries, we organize together with our network partners peace tables with women. We are convinced that women must be involved in peace processes. Without women, no peace. And then when women are together in peace processes with men, this makes hope. I wish us all a good exchange, much wisdom and foresight, so that we finally find a way out of this mess, which we ourselves are responsible for. Before all, we, the people in the North. Thank you so much.
And now we have the representative from Korea, Dr. Samuel Lee. Dr. Samuel Lee is president of Korean Christian Cooperation for Social Development, representative of Forum for Democracy and Peace in Korea. He studied philosophy and social science at Seoul National University and Göttingen University in Germany. He taught social political philosophy at Songsu University. He served as a Secretariat General of Korean National Commission for UNESCO and as Director of Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding under the UNESCO. He was involved in various activities of civil society organizations like People's Solidarity for Participatory Democracy, History NGO Forum, etc. Please, Dr. Samuel Lee.
I really appreciate your earnest efforts to facilitate this grandiose global forum to connect people's concerns and movement and share their pains and hopes so that the suffering and struggling people could gain more encouragement and energy to overcome and transform the society and the world. First of all, I would like to convey the solidarity greetings from Korea to the fighting people of Myanmar against military dictatorships. We are very sorry and painful to hear that already more than 800 people have been killed during their peaceful demonstration for democracy and human rights. As we have experienced the same in Gwangju massacre in 1980, which killed more than 800 demonstrating people, we are deeply concerned for the democratic struggle of Myanmar people. So many voluntary supporting campaigns are now being organized by students and churches and various civil society groups. We hope to see soon the victory of people in Myanmar. In this worrisome world of corona pandemic and ecological and climate crisis, we are all now very much concerned for the sustainable future. However, the work is not simple. The concept of sustainability is very broad and ambiguous, as it has too many dimensions and concept tasks. A sustainable future is not possible unless all kinds of necessary conditions for the survival of life can be secured, such as water, food, clean air, human rights, social peace, and gender equity. So the task and goal of sustainable development is to solve the problem of poverty, environmental degradation, wasteful consumption, population growth and healthcare crisis and illiteracy, which demands massive and relentless work to be carried out. The differing complex goals of sustainable development often conflict each other and create sometimes contradiction and dilemmas. Economic development conflicts with environmental sustainability. Population and pandemic control means also violation of human rights and freedom. So one may say each country should pursue different strategies and prioritize their own tasks for the goal of sustainable development. Urgent, immediate tasks and contextual priority strategies are very important and necessary. But more important thing is to maintain the balance and tension between holistic understanding and contextualized strategies of sustainable development. The practical strategies are to be established according to the urgent need and contextual analysis, but the holistic concept and comprehensive vision of sustainability must not be forgotten or disregarded. In this regard, I think South-South Forum for Sustainability is very significant and can produce many important and positive elements. I have served for UNESCO Education for Sustainable Development for many years. And I have learned enough the importance of global thinking and international and regional cooperations and for the practice of sustainable development. Ecological problems such as desertification, disappearance of the ozone layer, sandstorms, floods, tsunami, and climate changes cannot be observed and analyzed correctly without understanding the patterns of human life and the ways of agricultural and industrial productions in the global and regional context. I think South-South cooperation and Asian, African, and Latin American network of the people is very valuable and creative, especially for the spiritual dimension of sustainability. Sustainable development should not be estimated only in material terms or physical calculations. We must overcome the limitations and negative impact of material development of the Western capitalistic model, which propagates economic growth only through consumerism and commercialism. Asian and African countries can contribute much to the concept and strategy of sustainable development, using the spiritual resources and values from our traditional cultures, religions, and philosophies, which can yield the power to influence changes in behavior and lifestyle, and also help to create new development strategies that harmonize with native and ecological integrity. So I wish great success of this significant forum and thank all the organizers and participants of South and South. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel Lee. And now we have friends from Africa, Dr. Ebrima. and he is the Executive Director of Trust Africa, and he is the immediate past Executive Secretary of the Council for the Development of Social Science Research in Africa, called ESTEVA. It is Africa leading social research council that was ranked top 10 think tank of Sub-Saharan Africa in the 2016 Go to Global Think Tanks report of the University of Pennsylvania. Prior to becoming the executive secretary, he was a senior program officer and head of research at ESTEVA for 5 years. Please, Dr. Ebrima SALL.
Fraternal greetings and many, many good wishes to all the friends and comrades from all over the world who are participating in this great forum. It is good to be together again and to see the South-South Sustainability Forum living on and growing in every sense, in quality, in participation. It's really a pleasure. And we ought to thank the organizing team and thank people like you, Margaret, and Kinchi, Professor Wen, Hui, Lai Sung, and all those who have been working in between the different forums to make sure that every year we have the forum and it is better every time. I think one of the speakers already pointed to the importance of the choice of the theme for this year, resilience, people's resilience and resistance in catastrophic times. I think this is really important, and people's resilience and resistance is actually the key to solutions that will work for the majority of the people in the world. There are a lot of problems of all kinds, some of which have been mentioned by the previous speakers. But the key to those solutions, and for solutions that will work for the majority, not just any kinds of solutions, I think it's in the enhancement of the resilience of the people to make sure that the changes are centered on people's interests rather than on other kinds of interests. I will begin with one in saying in that is in Wolof language. Wolof is a language that is spoken in Senegal, Gambia, and this part of West Africa. But the saying sort of has an equivalent in many other African languages all across the continent. And actually, it just speaks to the guiding philosophy of human relations in these African cultures. And it is captured in a saying. And the saying in Wolof is, I will say it first in Wolof and then translate it. Nit, nite, moy garabam. Nit means a human being. Nite means being humane and being more human. So the translation of the formula is that the solution to humanity's problems is actually in higher forms of solidarity, higher forms of humanism. In other words, we have a challenge to rise to superior forms of humanism if you have to find lasting solutions to the problems of humanity. And this means, therefore, that the solution to the problems that we are talking about ultimately is in higher levels of human solidarity, in higher levels of humanism, and humanism that is not anthropocentric, nor is it a humanism that is oppressive or that promotes oppression of any kind or exploitative of other human beings, or that is promoting relationships that will be, exploitative of the environment or damaging to the environment or to other inhabitants of the planet. Just to remind that, in the Article 1 of the Mandate Charter, which is a text, and there was first an oral text that became written afterwards, and that was adopted in what is present-day Mali in Africa in the 13th century, says every life is a life. So there is a value attached to every life, and the mutual respect of the different forms of life and existence on this planet is promoted. And the Senegalese philosopher Souleymane Bachir Diagne actually speaks to this particular formula of nit, nite, garabam. I mean, the solution to the human being is in high superior forms of humanism. In a short article titled "The Song of the Masks," and he was discussing the wearing of masks and the significance of masks in COVID times, face masks. That actually one wears masks not only to protect oneself, but also to protect the others. In other words, there is a sensitivity to what happens to your fellow human being, and this is in Southern Africa what they call Ubuntu. You actually have any meaning, any significance in yourself. Your existence has a meaning, insofar as it is, it goes with the existence of others and the solidarity of others. I'm saying this because I think the catastrophes of the times that we are still living in, unfortunately, include COVID-19. And all the economic and social crises that come with it and that it has provoked. The COVID-19 pandemic, when it comes to the strictly health and economic issues, came on the back of serious liberalization processes under neoliberalism, and inequalities growing, and the exclusions and marginalization, and the fact that the livelihoods have become fragile for a lot of people and for the planet as a whole, and leading obviously therefore to a massive loss of life. And to the unfortunate thing is it's not completely out yet, as we see new variants of the pandemic appearing. We see new waves also appearing. Included in Africa, and they're traveling very fast. But now, in the responses to the pandemic, a lot of things have been tried, some of which have been expensive, actually damaging, adding to the problems of the poor and the marginalized of our communities. And we also know that right now there's a whole battle around access to vaccines. To begin with, vaccines are not produced in our own context in the continent of Africa. We depend on vaccines produced elsewhere. Some we get in based on the goodwill of some countries that are friends, or some programs that are jointly worked out together. But there's a need to pay particular attention to the most vulnerable among ourselves that are within our communities, who have not only been victims of the pandemic, but also victims of the responses to the pandemic that have produced adverse effects. You take the case of the lockdowns, the closure of schools, have led to a lot of things. A lot of children relapsing, falling out of school. Others getting gender violence increasing, violations of human rights increasing, state authoritarian measures being increasing in a number of ways. And there are reports recently that project a sharp rise in number of people who will relapse into poverty on the African continent in particular. So at Trust Africa, we take in the spirit of Ubuntu, this human solidarity, the need to find answers in superior forms of solidarity that are not narrowly human-centered. We have reached out to other organizations on the continent, and our approach has been to draw attention to the most vulnerable groups in our communities, who unfortunately exist. Before, some of them existed before the pandemic, and they also continue to suffer a lot more. And I think it's important to pay attention to them. All those who are called the DWD, people who are suffering from discrimination based on work and descent, and all the people who are living in informal or working in the informal sector. And therefore, what we are calling for in that initiative is for greater attention to be paid to these people's conditions, but also to work with the people in the search for solutions that are lasting, and in the transition to a post-COVID world that is much better than the one we have experienced so far. The problems around COVID is not the only problem. It found other problems that it made worse, and there are a lot more problems that are still around, as has been said already. And the answer is not to return to a pre-COVID situation that was, unjust, full of inequities, full of marginalization, exclusion, but to build forward better, to work for better futures. And in that, it is important, therefore, to strengthen human solidarity and resistance and resilience, and then to come back to centering really of these processes of the people and enhancing their resilience. I once again would like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in this forum, and congratulations to the organizing team and to all those who have made it possible for us to convene every year at the same time, and to do it in much more important ways every time we do it. Thank you very much.
The next 4 professors, they will speak in Chinese. First of all, let's welcome the next speaker, Professor Wen Tiejun. He is a leading scholar on agrarian issues in China. He is the executive dean of the Institute of Rural Reconstruction of China Southwest University and executive dean of the New Rural Development Research Institute Rural Reconstruction of the Straits at Fujian Agriculture and Forestry University. His research areas include comparative study on developing countries, local governance, rural reconstruction, and rural finance. He is the author of the newly published book, 10 Crises, the Political Economy of China's Development from 1949 to 2020. And he also has a book, a new book on financial debt, which will be soon published. It's the research from a long time experience. Now let's welcome Professor Wen Tiejun. Thank you for the moderator. Hello to everyone. Now I'm in Beijing, representing all my colleagues in China Rural Reconstruction Team. I want to send my congratulations and warmest regards to all of you here. I want to thank the team, the organizing team in Hong Kong for all your effort in holding this great event. Thank you for all your hardship and all your effort. This year we have come to a very important topic when we talk about the politics of hope. Actually, we are confronting a politics in despair or a situation that's quite depressive. When we are talking about the dilemmas, the crisis, the challenges that we are facing now, all this are resulted from the starting point of capitalism. It has troubled us for ever since capitalism has been here with us. So the innate challenges come from capitalism has accompanied us for a long time, and we have been struggling for a long time. I'm a person who has endured or experienced from the Cold War from the 50s to the 90s, when we saw the Trump administration and their hostile attitude to China. We cannot help but recall the Great Cold War, the strategies which have been used a long time ago in the Cold War. Actually, to us, Cold War is war. When we talk about politics of hope, we have a clear mind to see that the politics in Cold War is a politics of despair. When we see the Trump administration using the strategies in Cold War, we will call it the politics of despair. But when we are facing the pandemic, when the whole world, all the people are affected, greatly affected by this pandemic, we are actually in a union, in a unification to fight this crisis together. We should use our strategy, use our effort in protecting this earth for the environmental conservation, for our public health, for the health of each of us. We pray for peace. We are very deeply concerned that what has been taken place before, those wars, the first, the World War I, the World War II, all of them actually were resulted from the conflict of capital. It is because the surplus of capital will not solve its own problem. We have to clearly see the logic behind capital, to see that capital actually is the true reason of the despair. When we can see that, we can eventually unite together to shift the trajectory of this world. We all know that when the Cold War could easily turn to hot war, to a real war, we really hope the politics of hope would be a theme, would be a time for us to reflect on our past, but also give us hope for a new future. This time, have the chance to meet our old-time friends from long time ago. It is truly happy for me, but we have to be very rigorous, be very careful, be totally concentrated on this very serious topic. So there are three key points. First one, the resource sovereignty. When we have this, we could have sustainable security. I hope that this principle will be applied and will be a guiding principle for our discussion. Thank you. Thank you for Professor Wang's speech. He has reminded us that we have hosted continuously eight SALL forum, and he has reminded that from the very beginning, we have this key guiding principle. And if you go to our website, to the library, you could see all the accumulated materials. Thanks to Professor Wang. Next one, let's welcome Professor Wang Hui. He is a leading contemporary Chinese scholar, professor of the Department of Chinese and History at Tsinghua University, and director of the Tsinghua Institute for Advanced Study in Humanities and Social Science at Tsinghua University. He is the author of Resistant Despair, a study of Lucia and his literary world, and also the very renowned and well-known book, The Rise of Modern Chinese Thought. Professor Wang Hui is a longtime supporter of our forum, and let's welcome Professor Wang Hui.
各位好，祝贺南南论坛第
Hello everyone. Big congratulations to the 8th SALL Forum. It is not an easy project, especially ever since last year. We have been online because of the pandemic, but with so many support from so many good friends, it is really an endeavor and a big accomplishment. Just now, when Professor Wen Tiejun talk about the current crisis actually are a long-time crisis. And he compared the politics of hope with the politics of despair. And I totally agree his comparison. And as I early study of Lucia was mentioned, the title of the book is The Resistance of Despair. So actually, I'm talking about new possibility and hope. I remember 2 years ago, I mentioned the dialectic relationship between winning and losing. No matter Lu Xun, Mao Zedong, or other revolutionaries, actually, they are exploring their path through despair and hope, between victory and losing. So as we are in a new era of globalization, we are confronting new changes. Do we have new recipes or new prescription for this world? But we have seen a lot of leading countries around the globe. They are still trying to defending themselves and fighting for their own interests. But today, when we are on the Self Forum, when we are advocating for the self unity, it is actually especially important in the context of this globalization ages. I think a huge new social force is formed in the South. It will leading to new transformation, sustainable new world, and creating a new internationalism. The possibility is there.
As COVID-19 has bring out a lot of social conflicts, starting from the supply of vaccine, and this could be an opportunity for us to discover a new type of politics and to face the challenges and to explore new opportunities and possibilities. So I wish the South Forum a huge success. Thank you. Thanks, Professor Wang. And as he mentioned, and he quoted one of his speeches that has been studied, even though it's not open to public yet, but we will ask for his permission to see whether we can use some of the quotation to share with all the audience. And thank you, Professor Wang. the next speaker, you might have already been familiar with her, Professor Dai Jinghua, and Professor Dai is a professor of a Center for Comparative Literature and Cultural Studies and the director of the Center for Film and Cultural Studies in Peking University. And she's her focus is on the film, the literature on feminism, and she has a lot of has written a lot of books, and I just want to mention a few. And one of them is Emerging from Horizon of History, the study of modern women's literature. And she's very, she has opened a few columns in Bilibili, which is a YouTube counterpart in China. So let's welcome Professor Dai. Thanks, Xiaohui, and also thanks the whole host, and thanks Global University, the team of the Global University, who has worked a long time to make all this possible. And I, the same as the previous speakers, I warmly wish the success of the SALL Forum. And I know that and this forum will last for 1 month. And I wish it a great success. And to again, by bringing all together, we can search for new possibilities. And I'm very hopeful on this. And I see all the speakers and audience, and seeing you all on the screen is a way for me to reflect on the past 2 decades. And it's like a journey for us to be with you all, which reminded me of my trip to Africa, to Latin America, and to other part of Asia. And it is really like what Gustavo was saying. We have to use our legs to walk on the land of the Third World, where there are a lot of social conflicts and wars and sufferings. And at the same time, as Professor Wang has said, in such a 2 decades, and also in these 8 years of SALL Forum, we have paid attention to a lot of the problem, the issues, and the global crisis and global challenges, and the problems we all are facing, and through our dialogue and communication, we want to reach to a new breakthrough to see new opportunities. That is why we named this forum as the politics of hope. And the hope, for me, is connected to the future. And if you use the word term, the future, this term, if we can face our reality, future is as romantic and as difficult to directly express and to directly relate as the reality we are facing. That is why we want to start to define what is hope and what is the hope of politics. As Professor once said, the politics of hope and the despair of hope. The politics of despair. And Professor Wang mentioned for me, the politics of hope is very important for us to how we redefine our future. Just like a few years ago in South Forum, in the Lingnan University campus, I make a speech on the future of every degree. And as I'm saying now, why we have to redefine and look out for our future is because I am wondering whether humanity still has future, and what does our future look like. If we put out the term human beings, is it the future? Is it a human being as a community or as a species that share the same future? The future of humans, or the future that we are trying to create, what's our goal? Is it the shared happiness of human beings as a species, supported, upholded by our shared value as a species? Is it from this standpoint, from this higher standpoint, when we are facing our shared future? But in this capitalist society that has shaped our reality or our life, and in such a society that based on like credit, based on interest, the majority of us has been in debt because of this hidden or invisible structure. We can't really think about our future. We can't really create the future we want to be in. And we are restoring or screeching the future. We can't imagine the future we want to live in, even though we really want to do that. And in such a situation, or in such a and all this remind me of a Chinese film, which is not that famous, and the name is We Walk Past the Future, and which is about the first generation of farmers as they are getting older. The theme of this film is that they thought that they were promised to have a good life, but this bright future is not the one that they are facing and they are having. That's why the name of the film is Walking Past the Future. That the future that they have been promised is not there. It's not there for them after they retire, after they are getting older. So the third layer, there's people in different with different identity. They share the same name. They use the same term, which means future has never come. Even though a bright future has been imagined as a prosperous future, even that we see in a lot of science fiction film, a lot of where a lot of technology could create a bright new world for us. But what I want to focus is that if we are already living in the future, is there a future for those who have already lived in the future? And if we are already in such a future world, are we ignoring those who have imagined a more convenient, a more beautiful, and more magical human life? Even though a science fiction film has already pictured such a future that is highly embedded with an unequal society and unequal structure. So in such a science fiction that has, even though science fiction film is proposing a new future that seems to be more beautiful and more progressive, but actually what it propose or picture, where cities become bigger and the light in the city become brighter and brighter, and our material life is getting richer and richer. But actually there's an embedded civilization implosion embedded in such films and movies. And all this might come together with like pandemics and wars and social unrest and the loss of human civilization and the loss of humanity. So for me, when we are speaking about the politics of hope, when we are speaking about to create a hope, to create a future, I want to emphasize what I have spoken before. As we are trying to reflect on capitalism, we have to reflect on modernism. We can't rely on the fact that such a progressive logic won't bring us what we want. And as this progressive modernity, it will bring out a lot of social challenges. And human beings will become the enemy, become our own enemy. So today we have been going through new technology and the Cold War, and this is the new progress. And if we want to predict, and this COVID-19 has become what has kept going on, and it will continue to give us the lessons. And we couldn't really pause, because a lot of, even if we slow down, it seems to be a distraction, but COVID-19 kind of pressed the pause button for us. So for me, what is very interesting is that this pausing still, until today, is still happening. We used to think that we have to keep accelerating our race. It has become the illusion, because we have already seen the hope in further down the sufferings, because we saw this threat that we still have to be facing. We are forced to readjust ourselves, and this is necessary. But if we still see COVID-19 as a pausing, as a slowing down, as if COVID-19 is past or is gone, we will return to normal. So I would say if it is the end, if COVID-19 goes to an end, I believe there are a lot of dramatic changes already already happened. And hopefully before that happened, not many of us are in despair. That's why we are emphasizing the politics of hope instead of a fairy dream. What we want to emphasize is to create the future, and we are able to do that, and it is possible for us to create and to open a new type of politics and to create new type of politics that enable this new future to be born. I always want to talk about the Chinese politics and this 101 century movement. Since the 20th centuries, we have gone through a lot of Chinese Revolution, and this is what bring us bring a stop to what the third war. It seems to be the third war and destiny of the third war country. But even though we are already out of the third war destiny, but still, can we propose a different and a new solution and proposal for a new society and new civilization? And could we share these lessons and this experience with the third world countries? Because these possibilities are what we create, and which is different from a capitalist and a modernism and capitalism. And this 100 years has been telling us that history is not about the past, but it's not only about the past, but also about the future. We can't, if we have already thrown out the history that belongs to us, it also means we have to use Chinese lesson and to allow is the lessons and the experience and its inspiration to reopen dimension for the new future, which is not a to-be timing, and it is not a new phase of development, but it is a totally new thing. As we are facing a pandemic and this difficult life, we have already begun this journey, and we have to accelerate and this journey to change our consciousness and change the politics. So, and thanks, and wish SALL Forum a success.
On this occasion, I want to give the 4 dimensions of hope. First of all, hope is a kind of responsibility. It's the people who are at the bottom, who are bearing the weight of the entire world, who are bearing the pressure of survival, who are on the front line of life and death, that they are qualified to talk about hope. Second, I think hope is connection, because in this world, the majority of people are mostly exploited. oppressed, rude, and marginalized. Most of us are the 99% of the population. We all experience similar sufferings and fate, similar fate. So we should be united. We should get united regardless of country or race, gender. We should not be divided, should not be excluded from each other. For people who have agriculture experience, we know that the best soil in the world is called the agglomerate structure. It is not compatible nor lucent, but a large organic structure that formed by the combination of various small structures. So in this sense, I think hope is connection, connecting all of us who share the same situation. Third, I think hope is a kind of tolerance. In this year's forum, we emphasize resilience and resistance. I think resilience and resistance is about caring about ourselves, but not creating a position, not to replace others, but to create tolerance and love for the world we live in. When we are the majority, when we share this world, though we neither agree with the deteriorating system, but we are also not to replace the locomotive of the train, but we want to rebuild the check for the future to prevent anyone from heading to the abyss, no matter he or she is from the so-called good side or evil side. Actually, we want to include everyone on this check and to prevent anyone from this abyss. Fourth, I think hope is a kind of creation. Creativity is equivalent to life. It is our instinct to survive. I think this creativity is our endless force that maintains the continuity of life. Even though it is not easy, but with this force of creativity, we will find a new direction to a new future. It will be a path of hope. That's my words for today's forum, and thanks to all the speakers ahead. And now I will give the platform to Jade.
Yeah, and I would like to talk briefly about the double origins of the SALL Forum on Sustainability. In 2011, Professor Lau Qingqi and Professor Wen Tejun initiated a comparative studies of 7 emerging countries, E7, which include Brazil and China and India, Indonesia, South Africa, Turkey, and Venezuela. The 7 countries were chosen because they were at the time portrayed by mainstream media as moving from the periphery to the core. Scholar activists from the 7 countries set up national research teams. The research output was a nearly 500 pages book, this one, and it's named Globalization and National Competitions, a comparative studies of 7 emerging countries, published in this year, in January this year. Over 100,000 copies were sold in the last 6 months. This is an indication of the interest among Chinese readership in an intellectual position that interrogates neoliberalism and capitalism and assumes a position for the subaltern and the global south. In the same year, we start to organize the SALL Forum, taking note of the consequence and effects on nature and on peoples from the Global South in this implosion of financial capitalism. The SALL Forum has brought together feminists, scholars, peace activists, community workers, food producers, and rural reconstruction promoters to review, articulate, and debate theories and practices in transformative and collective actions called forth by the crisis of capitalism affecting the ecological, the social, the political, and the economic. Drawing upon the experience of community governance in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, SALL Forum is a platform for dialogues and exchanges among the grassroots on resistant practices in the production, dissemination, and use of knowledge as instruments of problematization and self-organization, as well as interaction among thinkers in search of paradigms for peace, justice, and a new socialism. The E7 comparative studies and the SALL forums set out to build SALL understanding and cooperation and promote sustainable practices and diverse ecological civilizations. One of the motors we work on is the 3S for sustainability based on sovereignty, solidarity, and security. Globally, massive numbers of grassroots movements, people's organizations, indigenous peoples, women, ethnic minorities, and marginalized groups in the Global South have dared to resist domination and exploitation and create livelihood alternatives and self-manage the social system in their own context. There is much to learn from localized sustainable practices in people's daily lives. As I have been engaged in the rural reconstruction movement for over 20 years, I would like to quote our senior pioneer Liang Shuming words in 1941. Liang was a Confucian and Buddhist who was actively engaged in the rural reconstruction movement in the 20th century. He recognized the resilience of small peasantry and village communities in countering Western and Japanese imperialism. He said, "We don't doubt on how we can defeat an enemy, but we think seriously how we can strengthen our resilience to resist. It means we don't let an enemy defeat us easily, and we can recover shortly after they defeat us. It is the principle of resilience. How we cannot easily be defeated and even recover as soon as we are defeated. That depends on the resilience of people's organization. The final victory relies on all villages across the whole country. The rural reconstruction movement can bring the effects of coordination and unification for the above. Meanwhile, it can enable the power of people's organization from below. Isn't it the best preparation before the outbreak of the Great War? I think learned words are relevant for us today in the catastrophic times of the pandemic, the capitalist implosion, and the climate collapse. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Many thanks to my two co-moderators. I would like to close the opening ceremony with a few words of my understanding of the politics of hope, which is the main theme of this forum. We have already started dialogues and debates in preparing for the forum, and in the following days, we will be privileged with the insights of the many eminent speakers, and we can all look forward to profound intellectual exchanges. On the question of hope, my view is, objectively speaking, hope speaks against determinism. If reality is ruled by determinism, there is no place for hope, and hope only becomes wishful thinking. But because reality is complex, being caught in the dynamic flow of constituting, disintegrating, and reconstituting forces, We have processes of becoming in which contingency, uncertainty, and chance play a significant role in the constituting of reality, which is why I think in reality, which is open to the future, there is always a place for hope. Subjectively speaking, hope is the courage to go on, the perseverance that refuses to give in, that refuses to be paralyzed in the face of seemingly impossible situations. It is the energy to respond with decisions and actions to the immediate demands of circumstances. Obviously, the capacity to hope requires training that cultivates openness and sensibility of the person to respond to singular events of chance, to allow oneself to be affected, to be open to differences beyond what is planned and what is familiar. The training must be contextualized in our times, that is, the catastrophic times in which we find ourselves. As hope requires training, that is why we have formal and informal universities co-organizing this forum, complementing each other and learning from each other. Thanks again to all the co-organizers. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all people that have made and are making this forum a space for hope. To the marvelous team of volunteers and staff who have taken very little rest in the last month and whose names I will not read because that will take half an hour and we are running over time. And my gratitude also to the 16-member team of simultaneous interpreters into English, Spanish, and Chinese. Some of them will be interpreting until 1 o'clock in the morning. And to all of you who are contributing in your ways to build alliances of hope to make another world possible.